Tonight we begin with a crown that doesn't fit. Dim the room. Let your chair remember your shape. Breathe the way the lamp breathes. Small, steady, guarding its little fire. The weight of the small crown, you are born into a sound. The hush a court demands when it pretends to be holy. You don't know the word court, but you know its breath. It smells like lamp oil and incense, like figs pressed into porridge, like broomed rushes and bronze warmed by hands that never sweat in public. Your first lullaby is footsteps slowing at your door, the reverence reserved for things that frighten people, even when those things are swaddled and asleep. Your cradle sits beneath a ceiling painted as a sky that never changes, light puddles in gold bowls. A priest knots blue thread around your wrist as if meaning could be tied and made to stay. A wet nurse counts your breaths under hers. The room watches you. The room has eyes. A winter that forgets to be cold, your father stops being a person and becomes a story told in a hall that does not feel like yours. The air is bright with dust and prayer smoke. Your lips taste metal. A general opens a door the way a farmer splits a melon, with confidence, without hunger. Your grandmother speaks without looking at anyone, and the room obeys her mouth. Scribes lift their pens, then lower them. Even ink knows when to wait. This is how a child becomes ruler, not by choosing, but by being chosen like a cup for its handle. You are measured and weighed, then lifted and poured full of futures. They dress you until you disappear, linen and cords and hooks. The robe scratches where the seam hides its teeth. Sandals bite, then promise to be gentle later. A circle of metal descends and presses your skull into a new shape. It smells of vinegar and old sweat, a devotional washing that is also an apology. It slides, then bites, then settles crooked. A servant's careful fingers nudge it straight. Your mother lifts your chin with a steady hand. In her face there is a narrow orchard where nothing quite ripens anymore. You walk into a hall where noise kneels. The floor is veined stone, the color of old milk. The dais is too high. The steps rise like questions. Sitting is swallowing. Carvings press through your robe. Victories you did not fight, cut into wood the way belief is cut into skin. Your feet do not reach the floor. Your toes find the edge of the step and cling. Names of ancestors are spoken like bells underwater. The crown has no gender, only appetite. Your first power is to be used. Governance, for now, is a crowded set of hands behind your face. Your name becomes a stamp that makes everything official. A tutor places their hand over yours. Together you draw sovereignty in ink that smells like breathing iron. Your signature is a tremble made legible. The council room waits like an old well. Chairs pretend to be trees. The table has a groove rubbed into it by fingers worrying decisions into shape. You tuck your hands in your sleeves so they don't learn to fidget where the city can see. People talk around you the way weather happens. A commander's mouth wants to be a blade. The treasurer's mouth is a soft coin that refuses to be spent. The priest tastes words as if checking for poison. Your grandmother need not speak. The room leans toward the gravity of her hand on the chair. Your tutor's sleeve brushes yours, the smallest prompt powdered conscience. A petition arrives. Stones for the river, maintenance with a hidden hunger. Words like levy and compliance. Words like drought with teeth. There is a script for you. Nod, bless obedience, let the seal turn, wish into law. Instead, a door opens for a servant with a bowl. The linen steaming over it sends cardamom into the room like a rumor. The council pretends not to smell it. Hunger makes animals honest. Ceremonies make them liars again. Bring it, you say. The room stills as if a lamp flickered. The servant smells like kitchens at dawn, heat made sincere. You lift the cloth. Steam touches your face like a mother with no time for kissing. "Tell me your name," you say. He does. It fits in your palm. You set the bowl on the council table. You ladle cups to the treasurer, to the general, to the priest, to your grandmother, to your tutor. Heat climbs their decisions. "This is how the river tastes when it is harnessed," you say. Then, we build, we bend. "Leave the steps to the river house where old women wash. Their prayer keeps us from becoming a barracks. Do not take stone from the mason's quarter. Their mouths already carry dust. Move the levy to those who eat their storerooms. Let them learn this taste in their sleep. The silence after is a new room. It expands, then holds you. Your tutor's fear braids with pride. Your grandmother's thumb rubs wood once, twice, and stops. The general drinks and grimaces in a language that does not need grammar. Afterward, a corridor, your sandals whisper. Unadvised, your tutor says, "Breakfast," you answer. The corridor forgives you both. At dusk, above the gate, the city breathes out. Lamps rise like a new field of stars. Down there, a baker drops a loaf and kisses it before giving it away. A woman draws a line between two ants, and they obey a country no empire will recognize. Your gaze is weather. Look west, merchants hear future coins. Look east, fishermen listen for dolphins. Smile, and a wedding is arranged. Frown, and a debt is forgiven. This is governance no one names. Painting softness and hardness with your eyes. Sometimes turning away is mercy. Sometimes it is absence. Your tongue learns the difference like a taste that hides behind another. A man from beyond the walls brings horses that look like smoke wearing muscle. He gifts you a stallion black as swallowed stars. The court is thrilled by gifts because everyone can pretend they own a little. You hold out your palm like a blank page. The horse breathes on it. Heat, weight, softness that wants to make you cry. You do not. The general watches for hunger in your face. Instead of claiming reins, you hand them to a stable boy whose grin you trusted before you knew why. "Teach it our words," you say. The stranger smiles real. The general recalculates his love. You learn the mercy of small powers. Move mealtime by a little, and soldiers stop trampling the spice cellar. Change a procession's order, and a widow reaches the temple before her tears run out. Ask for the dais water to be drawn from the lower quarter, and a boy drinks from the same well and decides not to throw stones today. Mend a cloak instead of replacing it, and a guild breathes easier. Frugality functions as superstition they can live by. These are soft weights. They hold. When a decision with teeth arrives, you discover the use of silence. No, without explanation, makes explanation the work of those who wanted yes. Breath they might have used to push you is spent inventing reasons you've already survived. It isn't noble. It feeds more people than noble ever did. Night carries a story from your grandmother. A river marries a mountain. One learns patience. The other learns to move. After, for the first time since your coronation, her palm rests on your head. "For now," it says, "I will keep you alive in the way that matters." And in the same touch, a warning. One day, you must decide what matters. You dream of a bowl that is the shape of the city. Stir and streets rearrange. Taste, and a general retires without bitterness. You wake with cardamom on your tongue and a new space behind your ribs where decisions can sit without spilling. Who were the forgotten child rulers and how did they govern? Like this. turning breakfast into policy, gaze into weather, pauses into fences. By refusing to be only symbol even as they were used as one. By carrying a bowl through a crowd without spilling and letting steam preach where law could not. By being many faces and keeping one small heart, a private name held warm behind the seal, so the person survives the post. Tonight, we continue with a lesson in hands. Close your eyes. Smell the wax, honey that remembers wings. Feel the ring in your palm like a sleeping star. Warm metal. Teach it your name. Morning decides to live. The flame flutters, then vows. The ring waits in its nest carved to cradle an egg. The crest is a lion that learned to whisper, a reed, a bend of river, a god with the face of weather, whatever your house chisels into certainty. The metal is cold until you teach it blood. Your tutor once said, "Press, do not puncture, seal is not wound." You repeat it as prayer and policy. On the table, 2 stacks. Documents you must touch and those you will not. The must touch pretend to be small. Oil for lamps in a month when wind helps with light. A millstone's chipped face. A question of salt where men already taste the sea. The won't touch smell like rehearsal. The general's hand has ghosted your name above his wish. If you press your seal, you will call it duty. Later, you will call it hunger. Today you place the knife on his pile. Not a threat, a mirror. He will read it, wax softens. The room smells like a hive instructed to believe in crowns. You sign 3, refuse 2, and pause over 1 where your own desire threatens to dress as mercy. Your face learns weather, a light rain for fields that need it. A dry wind where mold grows fast. You practice expressions in bronze so public rooms cannot practice them on you. Listening, forgiving, window, threshold. The mirror face, the one that lets others see only themselves, you keep hidden. It wins quickly and costs you everything. There is always a knife on the table. Cut reeds, cut fruit, cut string. It can also cut stories into the shape of fate. The general put it there. You do not move it. Danger seen is danger that behaves. Noon makes bodies honest. Hunger walks in with the kitchen boy. He carries a bowl with linen damp from steam. Cardamom travels like soft news. He sets the bowl down and glances at the knife and away again, fast, as if to spare the knife embarrassment. You tear bread. Seeds snap like gossip. You dip and remember that governance begins with directing hunger where it harms least. The general convenes grace with steel, instruction in falling without breaking, blades wrapped in cord so grip does not become clench. He watches your face for the joy he believes knives teach. The soldier old enough to be your father shows you positions, low as if apologizing to the floor, high as if scratching constellations into air, hidden as if injury to pride counts first. You learn the blade. You refuse to become it. Your vow is small and stubborn. Let my first cut be against a knot no one else can untangle. Under the stairs, the other court teaches you the seams of power. The laundress, hands whitened by ash, knows which corridors make whispers roll downhill. She laughs like a bucket swung hard. You say scrub the wells twice as often. Eat first from the stew. No decree. A weather report. The next day, water tastes like stone that has forgiven thirst for its questions. The seamstress shows you how to hide a second seam inside the first, a garment that holds even when someone undoes it. So you want a way to be unsealed, she says, and laughs until she wheezes. You prick your thumb. Iron visits your tongue. Now you know what your ink is kin to. The stable boy teaches you heels, how columns announce themselves, how single men carrying more than messages drag an echo behind them. Some letters travel under tongues. You begin to listen for saliva. A forgery arrives like a smile with teeth too even. A decree bears your lion, your reed, your curve of river, instructing the north gate to open itself in the dark for ceremony. The gate ward, arms like rope, brings it with a hand on her knife. Comfort for the knife, not a threat to you. Smell it, she says. Wax with Tallow's whisper. Cheaper, eager to keep fingerprints. Your own seals leave a smell of bees that took the long way home. The impression is right. The breath is wrong. You turn it in your hands, wax is young. Yours go out old because you let consent cool before you send it anywhere. You do a thing no tutor taught. Melt your wax, press your seal, then breathe on it before it hardens. Your breath leaves a fog-invisible veil, a crescent of dull just inside the lion's mane, a signature no eye will notice that every nose can learn. You make 3 more. From now on, the gate ward will lift orders like bowls to her face and obey only those that smell like honey taught patience. The general is relieved to blame the forgery on others. The treasurer counts suspects. The priest arrives late and blesses the sun for lowering itself. A boy barely older than you steals a sacred cup stamped so hard with animals it forgot it was metal. The room wants law to draw a clear line. It prefers lines to mercy. Mercy is whether it cannot predict. You put on the heavy robe that scratches meaning into your skin. You pull a thread free from the hidden seam. It protests with a sound only the seamstress hears. On the hall steps, you cut the thread in 2, a tiny snap, comic among thunder. You give him one end. You keep the other. This is a line, you say. Do not cross it again. The general's disappointment wears ceremony. Your grandmother's finger drums once, twice, and rests. The priest takes credit like it's free. The treasurer proposes fairness sharpened to theft, new rods longer by a fingernail, cups smaller by a swallow. You drift the plan into kitchens and markets days ahead. Chalk and lamb's blood become counter law. When he performs his arithmetic like prayer, the city yawns and says, already done. You never sign. He takes credit and loses a ring. You know which hand wears it now and what border it paid for. Not all laws belong to wax. In the quiet between drums, the dream reader asks, what name do you keep for yourself? You have been practicing faces so hard you forgot to save one for inside. If you don't keep a small name, they say gently, not kindly, they will harvest even your sleep. You go to bed and whisper the name your mother used near a cracked window where Jasmine climbed without permission. It sounds like water found. You hide it behind your teeth where kings cannot count. A kitchen boy with good knees dies under a falling tray. Accident, jealousy, God? The theories are patterns people use to hold grief without shattering. You ask the house for a story of him that isn't about the ending. They bring you moments. He danced when bread rose. He hated coriander. He carried a trapped frog to the cistern, cupped like a prince, and dared laughter. You take his herb bowl, fill it with water, and leave it on your window. It goes green. You refuse to clean it. You want one thing in your room that disobeys. At night, you talk to the scum as if it were a messenger river. It says nothing. Silence answers with a weight you learn to bear. How did forgotten child rulers actually govern? With breath warmed into wax, so consent remembered the person, not just the ring. By leaving knives visible so danger had to behave. By cutting knots and leaving threads intact. by hiding second seams inside first laws, by letting kitchens defeat treasuries and laundries clean more than clothes, by learning to listen with heels and noses, and the soft parts of the face no sculptor bothers to carve, by keeping a small unsealed name safe behind the crown, warm as a coin on the tongue, so the person could survive the post. And the cost? To live as a ledger and still hide one blank page for yourself. Because if you surrender even that page, you become a document anyone can write on. And the trouble with living as paper is that you burn beautifully. Hunger and theater tonight, we turn to empty bowls and full stages. You learn the arrival of famine the way a house learns a crack, not by noise, but by a new kind of quiet. The first sign is not the river, not yet. It is the mill, a different timbre in the wheel, the way the stone complains under grain that isn't generous. It is bread that tears wrong, a crumb that falls like dust instead of cloud. It is children chewing seeds like they are practicing for teeth they will never grow. Air tastes like storage. The market smell of sacks opened too early, of flat spice, of olives held past their nerve. Ovens cough. The pigeons grow bold. The water seller lowers his voice as if sound itself might drink. Your tongue sticks to your teeth. Your lips crack at the corners. Even laughter sounds dry, as if the city is telling jokes with a mouthful of sand. In the council room, hunger talks in other voices. The treasurer offers numbers like stones, measures, rods, a table of rations that takes food from the poor by renaming them miscounted. The general sees crowds as problems that can be marched through. The priest suggests a procession. Dress the need in flowers, carry it past altars until the gods blush. Your grandmother listens with the patience of someone who has watched a roof argue with rain. Your tutor writes nothing, which is how they say this moment cannot be filed. You do not speak first. You go to the ovens. Flour hangs in the air like a ghost of snow. Bakers' forearms are lacquered with burn and sugar. The kneading table is a geography of dents, places where hunger has leaned before. A baker with a face baked by his own heat looks up without surprise. He has seen kings in flour dust before, or he has learned to treat surprise as a luxury. Starter? You ask. And he lifts the mother jar, its rim crusted with decades of breath. He opens it, and the room smells alive, sour and warm, a living memory. Stretch it, you say, and he winces as if you asked him to thin blood with water. The city will taste compromise, he says. It already does, you answer. He nods, and in that nod is a treaty. You will share the blame for what bread becomes. You move through rooms that breathe heat. You watch women pat flatbreads with hands that remember lullabies. You touch sacks to feel how near the bottom hides. Chickpea flour, barley, anything that swells. You say, mix. Teach the tongue a new kind of truth. There is a moment. There is always a moment when the city decides whether it will live on memory or on compromise. You help it choose. The plan you carry back to the council isn't numbers. It's theater. We feed in public, you say. We turn law into a stage. We make the procession a kitchen. The priest is pleased by the word procession. The general is relieved to see spears and lines in the outline of your thought. The treasurer frowns. There is not enough arithmetic in your play. Your grandmother's finger taps once, twice. She is counting breaths, not coins. The day begins before dawn, because dawn is always late to this city. You wear an unadorned robe that scratches like honesty. The ring is on your palm, warm with your breath. The laundress has washed the square where bread will be broken and left her own salt there like a minor blessing. The seamstress has drawn chalk arcs on the stones, not circles of exclusion but crescents, so people feel gathered. The gate ward arranges the lines the way a river arranges reeds, tight enough to hold, loose enough to survive. Musicians stand ready not to celebrate, but to pace mouths. The drum marks the interval between loaves. The flute tells hands when to lift and when to let go. You have asked them to play slower than joy, but quicker than fear. The actors arrive with painted faces that make children brave. They have rehearsed a comedy called How to Share Without Becoming Wolves. In it, a greedy man tries to hoard a loaf and ends up with a pocket full of crumbs and a town laughing him back into himself. The dream reader has written the lines that do not sound like laws but become them anyway. Every hand gets heat. Every mouth gets steam. No second helpings until the drum remembers your face. You stand on a low step because you are not taller than anyone you ask to wait. You lift the first loaf. It is lighter than it ought to be. It smells like barley learning a new alphabet. You break it and watch steam rise like a rescued prayer. You hand a piece to a woman whose eyes have been dry too long, and to a boy whose cheeks have remembered roundness only as rumor. Your fingers burn. You are grateful for the pain. It keeps you from floating away into symbol. The general's men keep their spears low, their hands open. They pass jars of water as if they are passing an infant. The priest walks the edges, murmuring not thunder but weather. There is enough if we feel the slow. The treasurer stands with a board and chalk, moved against his will into the arithmetic of breath. He counts not loaves, but minutes between. A fight begins where fights always begin, at the place where the line believes it will end. Two men lunge. You do not speak. You step down, carry a jar, and pour a thin ribbon of water between their feet. The dust accepts it and turns to mud. They step back, both equally reluctant to slide. The crowd laughs. The tension lets go like a knot reconsidering. The actors seize it, exaggerate, fall on their backsides to demonstrate the law of slippery ground. Laughter replaces hunger's sharpest tooth. You lean close to the ovens and whisper to the fire as if it were a horse. Steady, friend. You watch a baker set aside a smaller loaf for an old man who pretends not to see. You keep the secret with the relief of someone allowed to keep one. The laundress ladles stew from a pot she once swore was for washing shirts. The stew tastes faintly of ash and effort. A child bites a piece of bread and closes her eyes as if she has met a god that asks nothing but chewing. When the sun climbs high and mean, you do a sacrilege. You send a message to the temple that the offering breads will be smaller until the fields remember. The priest's mouth shapes offense, then memory. If the gods hunger, you say softly, they can taste it through us. The dream reader nods as if you have said a true name out loud. Afternoon thins. You remain. You refuse the shaded chair a well-meaning noble offers. You let dust lie on your tongue. When a mother tries to press her place into your palm, you take her hand instead and press the ring into it for a moment. The lion's mane leaves a crescent on her skin that will fade, but not quickly. Tomorrow, you say, and you feel the crowd hear the word and test it for lies. Night closes like a curtain that was always a sky. The square is a bed of ashes that smells of work. Your robe has become heavier, or you have become less. In a corner, the actors remove their faces and scrape paint into a bowl the color of old berries. One of them hands you a mask and says, "Keep this, for the days you need to be believed before you are heard." You do not take it. You already carry enough faces. You leave it on the step, a moon that has learned to quit. Back in your rooms, the bowl from the dead boy still sits on the sill, green with refusal. You break your own small portion and crumble half into that water. It floats, sinks, dissolves, becomes the same as the rest. You drink from the other half of the loaf, not a sip, a bite called a sip by lips that will not admit their thirst aloud. Hunger has entered your body in an acceptable way. It will live there until the river tells you how to evict it. In the morning, the city calls yesterday a miracle because it prefers stories with halos. You know it wasn't. It was pacing and chalk and a drum that set the speed of mercy. It was actors teaching law to people who hate law. It was you, a child, holding bread until your fingers hurt, so your face could be more useful than your seal. It was theater with real props, and your body was one of them. How did forgotten child rulers govern? Like this, by arranging hunger into choreography and asking the city to dance without trampling each other. By making a procession into a kitchen and a stage into a ledger. By teaching loaves to carry meaning and music to count. By choosing to be seen tired and thirsty so belief would follow instruction. By committing small sacrilege to save larger reverence. By letting mercy arrive dressed as comedy so pride could laugh and still eat. And the cost? When the famine lifts, the story keeps the miracle and loses the hands. Memory smooths away the chalk, but your palms remember heat. You will pass a baker years from now and smell compromise and swallow a grief no one will praise. Survival is theater with real hunger. The curtain falls. The stomach does not. You bow to a city that will forget your face and remember only that bread once came like weather when a child lifted their hands and made the drum breathe slow. Exile in place soft instrumental. A single string like breath on glass, a low drum farther away than yesterday, one warm lamp. The fan hums as if it's tired of its own wind. Tonight we enter the kind of exile that doesn't require distance. It begins with a cough you tried not to count. Your grandmother's cough is small, private, the kind a proud roof makes under too much rain. She does not call for the priest. She calls for the dream reader, and then for you. Her room smells like cedar kept clean for decades and medicine that wants to be sweet. She presses your hand, and for a flicker you are not a crown. You are a child under a palm that has kept you alive. Stay soft, she says. It sounds like treason. Then her mouth relaxes into a line that is also a riverbed. And hide your softness carefully. She leaves the rest unsaid. The body knows when it is done speaking. When the house stops pretending, the hall swallows a sound. The general's condolences arrive with a plan already tied around them like ribbon. For safety, a word that can be trained to do any trick. The priest volunteers a period of seclusion to keep the crown from breath too common. The treasurer recommends stability of signatures, which means more hands between you and ink. The city ties blue cloth on doors and pretends the sky will notice. They do not take the ring. Not exactly. They put it on a tray whose handles require 2 hands. The ring becomes a ceremony you must request. It arrives with witnesses. It leaves before the wax fully cools. You are allowed to warm it in your palm in the presence of a man who writes down how long you warmed it. Your chair is moved behind a lattice screen painted with birds that never land. The wood smells like lacquer and swallowed voices. From here you see parts, elbows of men, knees of women, hands, feet, the undersides of decisions. Your tutor sits just out of reach, a shape that could be anyone if you choose not to blink. The general speaks to the room as if you are a god who enjoys being overheard. Exile in place is not distance. It is being required to look through pattern. It is the discovery that some patterns were built to make looking feel like touching. It is the ache in your knees from kneeling on pillows so the guards can say you are comfortable. The first day behind the birds, you try to govern with voice. The second, you learn that absence can be a tool. On the third, you change the house instead. You move the cleaner's schedule by an hour. Men who prefer shadows meet brooms instead of each other. A corridor that carries whispers now carries soap water. Conversations skid and dissolve. You ask the laundry to dye the palace napkins a shade bluer than the usual sky. The treasurer's clerks learn to smell the difference between your table and the general's and stop accidentally delivering papers across that color. You tell the kitchen to buy lamp oil from the vendor with the cracked jug. His oil is a little smoky. The smoke stains the papers that pass his fire. From then on, you can tell by scent where a decree slept. You ask the seamstress for hems that speak. She shows you a simple stitch that looks like vanity but is a code. Long, short, long means hold. Short, long, short means delay. She embroiders it on your plainest robe so a gate ward, seeing you from across a courtyard, knows which door to leave stuck and which to grease as if by accident. The stable boy becomes your courier by doing nothing that looks like carrying. He walks horses at odd hours along routes that happen to pass men who owe you listening. A tug on a halter means wait. A half circle means turn back. A hand finishing the circle says, return tomorrow with an empty mouth. You stand at your screen. You watch Rains transmit sentences with better manners than letters. A festival approaches, heavy with the need to reassure. The priest proposes your silhouette behind silk, a child-shaped certainty. The general wants you high and far, framed by spears. The treasurer suggests tossing coins bearing your profile. Metal souvenir, purchasable loyalty. You ask for none of it. You stay behind the birds. The procession passes, and the city reads the absence. Either you are ill or you are holy, or the house is frightened of weather. Each reading does work you cannot do alone. You govern by letting people invent reasons that keep their pride unbroken. At night, the ring returns under supervision. The wax is brought already softened, as if consent can be prepared in your absence. You press, you breathe, you lift. The clerk with the careful stopwatch coughs, and the cough says, your breath is beside the point. It is not. You make a second mark where only the laundress will notice. You touch your inked finger to the underside of the tray, a dot that will travel as far as the ring does, so your body still answers to itself. The dream reader visits behind the lattice. Their voice is clean as a cup. Exile is a kind of mask, they say. Learn its sight lines. You ask how to keep softness warm when the house is a winter. They tell you the story of the two fires, one that lures, one that keeps the room from cracking. You're not a hearth, they say, but you can place one where men will be kinder to each other because the light makes them honest about their faces. You test it. You have the lamps dimmed in the council before any argument. In the half-dark, the general's voice measures itself. The priest listens with his ears instead of his rank. The treasurer loses one of his rings under his own words and has to ask for help finding it. The room laughs once, the kind of laugh that puts knives away. You do not speak. But later, the laundress tells you, fewer shirts had blood on them that night. The city sends rumors to check on you. The water seller calls your name at the well as if it were a word for luck. The boy with the thread ties his two halves to the belt of a younger child in the bread line and says, "Learn to stop." On market day, a woman with fennel passes your window. She has no blade. She looks up and blesses the lattice because blessing is the one weapon everyone can carry in daylight. You are not inactive. You are a stone that reroutes a stream. You request that the temple's offering bread be baked in the outer ovens, not the inner, so the hungry must pass the god's door to smell it. Piety increases. Theft decreases. Not because the smell convinces, but because the priests, shamed by their own appetites, begin to share more. You ask that the guard patrols shift to a rhythm that coincides with the fishmonger's shouting. Fights break differently when timed with the sea. The general calls it good fortune. You let him. On a morning hot with decisions, a delegation from beyond the walls arrives with lacquered promises. Their leader smiles with the patience of a trap. He offers you an alliance in a language that treats children as decorative. The treaty is long as a hallway you are not allowed to run in. You ask for time not because you need it, but because time is the only coin that can buy you access to what you cannot see. Behind the screen, you pull the paper close and smell it. It carries resin from trees that do not grow near here. The scent is clean, efficient, nothing like your bees. Your breath on your ring will not cling to it. You will have to govern without wax. So you send an actor to the market to perform a play called The Guest Who Forgot His Own House. In it, a traveler insists on changing the rules of a table he did not set. He is kind, he is persuasive. He is wrong. The crowd laughs until it discovers it is also the table. The delegation, new to your city, comes to see what your citizens laugh at. They do not hear the lesson, but they notice where the laugh lands. When they return with amended terms, their smile has learned humility as a second language. The priest believes it was prayer. The general suspects your tutor. Your tutor watches you through the lattice and says nothing. The bowl by your window is still green. You crumble bread into it and watch it refuse to become anything but itself. The smell is patient, inconvenient. Some days you close your eyes and wish you could climb into the lattice and live there. Pattern and wood, needing no food offered in public. No mask that has to be held to your face until it fits. How did forgotten child rulers govern when their world reduced them to ornament? By architecting distances. By placing hearths before arguments. By moving broom and bucket and lamp until conspiracies met mops. By teaching hymns to speak and reins to carry sentences. By letting absence do a job presence could not. By refusing to make consent easy to preheat. By making rumor your horse and silence your knife's sheath. And the cost? Exile in place becomes exile in time. Years later, they will remember that the city stayed calm in a season when it could have split. And they will not remember the child behind birds, moving schedules like stars, pressing breath into wax under someone else's stopwatch. You will pass the lattice in your dreams and feel the grain under your fingertips, and that will be the map you carry. Rooms you saved that never knew your name. Memory is a poor cartographer of quiet labor. Identity bends where it must to keep from breaking. Survival is learning to be present where you are not allowed to be seen, and to accept that the best statues of you will always look like furniture. But you will know. In the green bowl on the sill, in the stitch that says hold, in the softening of a voice when lamps dim, you will know you are here, and that sometimes the truest governance leaves no signature except a room that learned to breathe. The day the mask holds tonight, we arrive at the day your face forgets how to be skin. The mask is hammered gold lined with linen. The inside smells of vinegar and gum, the kind that bites the tongue and insists on obedience. They dust your cheeks with rice powder so the metal won't shine with sweat. A ribbon draws tight behind your head. It is both leash and promise. The priest calls it a blessing because blessings are comfortable costumes for control. Hold still, your new attendant says. Her hands are careful in the way of people who trust objects more than outcomes. The gold cools against you, then takes your temperature, then refuses to let go. You breathe shallow so the metal doesn't fog. Your jaw aches within 10 heartbeats. Your tongue learns its cage. This is the renewal, a ceremony to declare you unchanging in a world that refuses to stay still. The general has insisted the city needs a fixed face. The treasurer has promised coins stamped to match. The priest has rehearsed a prayer that flatters gods by pretending you are their mirror. You think, I am a child, and behind this I am already many, and now I am asked to be one more. The square smells of crushed flowers and hot iron. Incense lifts like thin animals learning to fly. Your robe is heavy with woven assurances. A boy drums slow enough to feed patience. The crowd arranges itself in crescents, as the seamstress taught, so bodies feel held instead of herded. You stand on the low step. You have insisted. But the mask steals even that humility and turns it into spectacle. A gold face on a small body is a kind of poem that refuses translation. People hush, not with reverence, but to listen for the sound mercy makes when it travels under metal. The first crack of the day is not in your mask. It is in the rumor that arrives already dressed like evidence. The general's officers bring a bundle of hems and sleeves, garments embroidered with your hidden code, long, short, short, long, short, long, long, short. Hold, delay. They call it treason disguised as thread. They lay the proof at your feet, the way men lay a net and pretend it caught itself. They summon them, the seamstress, mouth pinned by a needle she put there herself to keep from speaking. The gate ward, rope on her wrist like a bracelet she plans to return. The stable boy, hands smelling of horse and rope in the open. The laundress, palms white from ash, calm as if this too is a stain that will lift. Behind them, the dream reader, not accused, merely present, which is its own accusation. The priest says words about purification. The general says words about example. The treasurer calculates a punishment he can afford. You cannot lift your face to give them the look that says, live. The gold has you. Tears would pool and burn. You do not give the general the satisfaction of a flinch. You do not give your people the theater of your heart. You choose the only thing left. You make a third way from a ritual no one respects because it's mostly boring. The mask must be tested, you say. Your voice thinned by distance and metal into the kind of sound cities pretend to hear from statues. The day is for truth. Let truth arrive slow. The priest perks up. Theology with a schedule is his favorite. The general's mouth goes careful. You ask for 2 braziers to be placed at either side of the square. Fire, warm and contained. We will speak judgments between them, you say, so heat and distance agree. The dream reader looks at you through holes punched in gold and nods once. a hinge choosing kindness. The seamstress is first. She bows to the braziers because flame deserves manners. One of the officers holds up a robe, your robe, the hidden seam a bright whisper in silk. Why? He demands. For the day thread must survive being undone, she says, and even the priest tilts his head as if recognizing prayer spoken by someone without permission. The general opens his mouth to turn skill into conspiracy. Before he can, you lift your ring hand. The lion prints its crescent into your palm. We will not break hands that hold us together, you say. We will change where they work. From now on, temple banners will be repaired by these hands. If a god falls apart, let it be restored by those who understand hidden seams. There is muttering. It tastes like bread saved from burning. Not mercy, realignment. The gate ward steps into the heat. You kept a false order from opening a gate, the general says, and yet you failed to report that the order existed. She smiles. A little. I reported it to your secretary, she answers. He reported it to his drink. The square laughs, the kind that puts knives away. You let the laughter live. Reassignment, you say. South Gate, where the road is crowded with traitors who talk too much to be dangerous. Their stories will guard us. The general nods like a man accepting a cup he did not ask for. The laundress lifts her hands without being told. They look like they have been spending their whole life becoming maps. I washed the blood from your decisions, she says, not unkind. And the dust. The priest bristles at the word blood. You intervene. The palace wells will be the cleanest thing in the city, you say. And you will decide who drinks first on days the river forgets us. If any man argues, he can wash the flags himself. The stable boy is last. There are whispers about rains and messages, about horses led in circles by a boy who knows the weight of letters under tongues. The general would like an example. Examples are meals he understands. The boy stands straight and smells like thunderstorms that decided to graze. Your jaw aches inside its gold decision. You can save him and expose the rest. You can lose him and keep the room you've built beneath the stairs. The dream reader steps forward. Their mint and paper smell makes a small wind. A horse taught me a story, they say mildly. It said, run where thunder is only rumor. The general frowns. He hates being spoken to with weather. You turn your ring under the mask, pressing the lion into a stronger crescent, as if pain can ink a better law inside your wrist. The stables will trade boys, you say. North for east, east for north. All records cleansed. If anyone wishes to find a single pair of hooves in this city, let them learn to smell the wind. It is theater. It is also a door opened where walls insisted. The stable boy's eyes touch your mask and leave behind a gratitude that will not allow itself to become relief until later. You have delayed. You have bent. You have refused to let the square become a knife. The general is not finished. He produces the bundle of hymns again. Sedition, he says, patient now, the way a trap uses patience to become kindness. Symbols that speak without permission. You stand very still. The mask holds. The metal has learned your heat and refuses to soften further. Remove the symbols, you say. Leave the stitches. Let our clothes be mute about our secrets and eloquent about our care. You will lose the code. You will gain the right to keep your people's hands. The seamstress's eyes shine in a way gold cannot. She nods. Later, new codes will be invented. They always are. Today, you offer the general a victory that tastes like ash, so he believes he has eaten something. The priest asks, as priests do, for confession. The dream reader steps into the space between braziers. I confess, they say, that I taught the child to warm metal with breath. Silence spreads like a cloth. I confess I told them to keep one name unreachable. The general inhales greed, ready to turn this into sanction. The priest reaches with soft, envious hands to claim spiritual authorship. You tilt your gold face and make your voice narrow as a needle. Then let the dream reader be paid as a tutor is paid, you say. And blamed as a tutor is blamed when a child learns too well. Laughter again, uneasy, afraid, relieved. The dream reader bows so low their voice becomes a stone that decides not to fall. By sundown, the square smells of cooled metal and trampled flowers, of oil that learned patience, of a city that chose to live together again for one more day. The mask comes off with a soft sucking sound. The ribbon leaves a line behind your ear that feels like a road someone will mistake for a scar. Your face is wet where it was forbidden to cry. Your cheeks hold the shape of the gold for a few heartbeats longer than you can bear. You touch your skin and it does not remember your hand at first. In your rooms, the bowl on the sill is greener than ever. You crumble a crust into it and watch the bread dissolve into something indistinguishable. Your fingers smell of gum and sweat and horse and ash and mint. You press the ring to your wrist and the lion answers. Not a wound. A seal. Your tutor was right, but the line is fine. And today you have stood on it until your bones agree to a new definition of soft. How did forgotten child rulers govern on the day the mask refused to come off? By turning punishment into reassignment and doom into choreography. By letting codes be unstitched to keep hands attached. By feeding the general small victories and the city large ones. By hiding rescue inside ritual and mercy inside the pace of the drum. By standing very still while the room learned a different meaning for strength. And the cost? The face that learns the mask too well keeps wearing it when no one is looking. Smile, and your skin checks with the gold before it agrees. Weep, and your tears search for edges that aren't there. Memory will make a statue of you, and statues don't breathe. Identity becomes a seam you pray will hold when someone starts unpicking. Survival is learning how to leave the mask on the table and still feel it, then forgiving your seals and secrets. Tonight, we go down into the house where paper pretends to be stone. You learn the archive by smell before sight, gum, Arabic, and dust, a sweetness from old glue, the mousy tang of years that chewed themselves into corners. Even the darkness has texture, the nap of papyrus, the smooth, oily stubbornness of parchment, the brittle whisper of reed baskets when you brush them with your robe. A scribe coughs the way a page would cough if it remembered lungs. A moth thinks about your lamp and decides to be polite. The ring warms in your palm as you walk. The lion on it is not brave. It is faithful. You breathe on the metal the way one warms an infant's feet. Bees rise faint in the wax cup you carry, the ghost of their labor refusing to go quiet. Behind you, soft as a rumor, the dream reader's mint finds your hair. Ahead, the gate ward's shadow leans just so, permission disguised as boredom. The stable boy leads a horse around the courtyard, hooves making a story of loops for anyone awake enough to listen. The seamstress peels back a hem from herself, a strip of linen meant for a bandage becoming a blindfold for a peephole. The laundress has washed the floor with a patience that makes every footstep confess. Exile taught you to move a house by touching only its habits. Tonight, you will move memory. On a lacquered table sit 2 bundles under the priest's seal. The wax shines too eagerly. Tallow hides in it, cheap, quick to take a print, impatient with heat. Even in the dark you can smell the difference. Bees tell a story. Tallow tells a price. The bundles are lists that sound like protection and read like hunger. Reassignments, recalibrations, safety measure arrests for agitators. Names you know like rooms, seamstress, laundress, gate ward. The stable boy is there as runner. There are others, hundreds, people you haven't touched and still you feel the weight of their wrists. The general's handwriting leans on the words until they flatten. The treasurer's annotations are round as coins. The priest has drawn a line down the margin as if separating mercy from necessity and charging interest. You hold the paper in both hands so it knows you mean to listen. How do you govern a list? You ask the dark. The dark, which has learned your questions, answers with a draft from the cistern that smells like wet rope. Fire is a language you know. You could hold these pages above a brazier and let ash become a sudden law. But flame is theatrical. Tomorrow it will be explained, and explanation is a net. You need something slower. You need rot to masquerade as order until order changes its shape. You open your wax. Bees rise again, a memory of summer pinned to your wintered nerves. You press your ring into a blank page, not to decree but to date. Your breath fogs the crescent within the lion's mane. You do it again and again. You make a thin book of yesterday's pardons, each stamped with a breath that will dry into scent. You write in a hand that looks like your own after water, similar, softened, true enough to survive suspicion. The dream reader holds the lamp far back so the page's shine does not betray you. The seamstress's pen touches the margin, leaving a dot where only she will read the code. Hold. Delay. You slide your book under the top slat of the clemency's chest, backward, so it will be found first when someone who counts loves to count in order. You take the general's bundles and fold them into to be cross-referenced, a box no clerk visits with zeal. You misnumber. You misfile. You move the treasurer's favorite ledger 1 shelf down and watch the clean space it leaves make him less certain of the floor. You smear faintly with a thumb dampened in the kitchen's smoky oil. Later, a gate ward will lift a writ and say, "Does this smell like honey?" And if not, she will set it aside and claim the gods have asked her to wait. On a low bench, a scrap of parchment sleeps. You sit. You write a list of your own. Not edict. Names. The bowl boy, frog carrier. The laundress, ash-white palms. The seamstress, second seam. The gate ward who laughed a knife quiet. The stable boy who taught you the difference between thunder and rumor. Your grandmother, who turned her hand into weather. A child you will never meet, asleep in a quarter whose well no longer stinks, because you changed a schedule no decree will remember. You do not sign with the lion. You sign with the small name you keep behind your teeth. You fold the page in 4 and slide it beneath a loose tile where you once hid pomegranate seeds as a different sort of treason. If anyone finds it, they will assume it is a lineage of servants. They will be right. The general's breath snags the air long before he turns the corner. Some men wear their impatience like perfume. He enters with a candle tall as his patience and half as useful. The treasurer follows, sleeves careful of soot. The priest lifts his robe as if dust were below him. Behind the lattice, you become what they deserve to see. A child confronting paper that already decided. An early audit, the general says, virtuous as a knife in its sheath. to preserve continuity. He holds up a reel of cords like trophies. "We are binding," he says. "Bind this," you say, and hand him the clemencies that smell of yesterday. He startles. He is too well trained to show it, but his eyelids, treacherous, admit surprise. The treasurer reads dates and turns them into blasphemy. Mercy before hunger? The priest tastes air as if searching for salt and finds honey, a taste that makes him sentimental. "The gods are swift," he declares, blessing your forgery. "They're not," you say, voice smooth as wax under breath. "We were slow," he beams, misreading your sentence into a prayer he can take credit for. The general rolls the lists into a tube and thumps them against his palm, measuring weight. "We will need to reevaluate enforcement." His tone makes enforcement into a river that can be asked to change direction out of politeness. You nod, and nodding makes the river think it decided. The stable boy clicks to a horse outside, the private punctuation of lives that need to move. The laundress has left a damp along the threshold precisely where the treasurer will step. His shoe will sing a shame song when the clerk records the meeting later. The seamstress's pin glints at the edge of your sleeve, a bright period to a sentence you do not say. There are other secrets in this house. A cabinet where the priest keeps incense that smells like fear. A drawer where the treasurer hides a broken ring and a note from a widow thanking him for a loan he did not give. A peg where the general hung a child's sling once and convinced himself it belonged to no one he loved. You see none of them. You do not have to. You know the shape grief makes when it chooses not to learn tenderness. Next morning, the city wakes to find warrants inconveniently contradicted. A gate ward shows a seal that says wait. A tailor refuses to surrender a robe because the temple banner fell and someone had to repair it. A stable suddenly lacks the boy a captain wants to name. The priest explains it as miracle. The treasurer misplaces his arithmetic. The general adjusts his story to survive. You visit the archive in daylight. Pages breathe in your face like animals newly caught and treated gently. A scribe looks up and learns to pretend surprise. You touch a spine, and it shivers dust that was waiting for this era. You do not close your eyes when you pass the loose tile. You do not need to press the memory. It will hold. There is a price. There is always a price. In the years that will be written by men who love smooth narratives, your reign will be called the fog years. Decrees contradicted, seals disputed, a child signing and unsigning, inconsistent, a word that feels clean in the mouth and dirties everything it touches. The mercies will remain alive and unnamed. The hands you kept will keep holding cloth and rope and reins and thresholds. The names behind the lattice will go on being spoken in rooms that never learned the word rain. That evening, alone, you take a blank scrap and write a law you will never show anyone. If the truth harms the living more than my forgetting will harm me, I choose to be misremembered. You do not seal it. You fold it and feed it to the green water in the bowl on your sill. It softens, dissolves, becomes part of the general murk where your best decisions sleep. How did forgotten child rulers actually govern when the danger moved into the archive? By ruining certainty gently, by teaching paper to hesitate, by hiding mercies behind dates and breath and honey-scented wax, by misfiling cruelty until it expired, by writing clemency into the margins because the center is too watched to carry kindness, by letting their own names carry blame that once would have been a body. And the cost Memory becomes a place you have to vandalize to keep it safe for others. Identity is a corner of the archive with a loose tile, a list in a small hand, a ring pressed to a wrist in the dark. Survival steals the clarity you wanted your life to have. Later, when someone asks, "Who were they?" the answer will be a fog that fed us, a child who breathed on wax until law remembered a human, a face we misread on purpose, which is to say, you were there. The evidence is everyone who lived.